Hi, Alexander. Thank you so much for accepting this interview. Today's topic is intercultural communication, and I'd like to know about your experience working in another country.
Hi, Isabel. Thanks to you for inviting me. Well, yes, I've been living in the state of Georgia in the United States for about 3 months now. I work as the accountant of a well-known bar here in the city, and even though I haven't been here for that long, it's been a really interesting experience because I've had to adapt quickly to a different culture and a different way of working.
That's great. Tell me a bit more about how you got there and how it's been adapting during these first few months.
I got here thanks to a job opportunity offered by the owner of the bar, who is actually a friend of my family. At first, it was difficult because even though I already spoke English, I wasn't used to the southern accent. It's pretty strong. Also, I live in an area where there are almost no Latinos, and most of the people I interact with are older. So, if the language itself is already a challenge, communicating with people from another generation makes it even more interesting. The way they speak, their expressions, and even the topics they talk about are very different from what I was used to in Mexico.
And during this time, what similarities have you noticed between Mexican and American culture, especially at work?
I think the biggest similarity is the importance of teamwork. In both places, when coworkers get along, everything works better. I've also noticed that Americans like to joke around and have a relaxed work environment, which reminds me a lot of how things are back in Mexico. And of course, punctuality and responsibility are values that both cultures appreciate, although here they take them a bit more seriously.
And what would you say have been the main differences or challenges in communication?
Definitely the language and the way people communicate. Even though I'm confident speaking English, at first I had trouble understanding local expressions or slangs. And also, people here tend to be very direct, while in Mexico, we usually try to be more careful with our words so we don't sound like so rude. But at first, that confused me a little bit, but later I realized it's not a lack of manners, it's just part of their culture.
Yes, that happens a lot. How did you manage to adapt a different way of communicating?
Mainly by observing and listening. I realized that tone of voice and body language say a lot. I also tried to learn some common local expressions they use here in Georgia, and that helped me to connect better with my coworkers. Another key thing was losing the fear of asking questions. At first, I felt shy about it, but then I understood it's better to ask right away than make mistakes later.
Please, could you tell me about a situation where you had some difficulties because of a cultural or language misunderstanding?
Yeah, sure. My manager told me once that we're good for now, but let's touch base later. I thought everything was fine and that the topic was closed. But what he actually meant was that we would talk about it later again. It wasn't a big deal, but it made me realize that idiomatic expressions can always be translated literally. Since then, I always double check what people ask me to avoid confusion.
That sounds very common when living abroad. So, what suggestions would you give to other people who are going to work or study in an intercultural environment?
First of all, to have an open mind and a lot of patience. Cultural differences are normal, but the key is not to get frustrated and to learn from every experience. It also helps to listen more than you speak. Also, watch how people behave and adapt like little by little. And most importantly, don't take things personally. Many misunderstandings come from cultural differences, not bad intentions.
Wow, those are great tips. Finally, how would you describe your general perception of the culture in Georgia? What positive and negative aspects would you highlight?
What I like the most is how kind people are. Here in the southern United States, there is something called southern hospitality, and it's completely true. Like, people are polite, they always say hello, and they make you feel welcome. I also like that they really value punctuality and works ethics. But on the negative side, I would say that since there are very few Latinos, sometimes I feel a bit isolated or out of place. Also, some older people can be a bit reserved or cautious at first, especially with foreigners. But once they get to know you, they treat you with real warmth. Overall, it's been a very positive experience that has helped me grow both professionally and personally.
Excellent, Alex. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and your advice. Your story really shows how important intercultural communication is when adapting to another country.
Thanks to you, Isabel. It was a pleasure to take part of this interview.